For anyone who is still unfamiliar with the harem genre, which I find very unlikely but I'll introduce it anyways, the main thing to know is that a series of this genre plays on romance by having one main character and multiple romantic interests. Now for most, if not all harem anime and manga, it is common for the fanbase of a series to be split into teams to root for their favorite romantic interest character for a variety of reasons like best fit for the protagonist, best personality, or even best appearances. The Quintessential Quintuplets by Negi Haruba leans directly into this phenomenon in harem fandom by proposing that one of the titular quintuplets, Ichika, Nino, Miku, Yotsuba, and Itsuki, would become the future bride of the main character, Futaro. The fans are thus left to speculate and side with who they think should be the bride. The title and thumbnail of this video should give you an idea, but I'll make things very clear that as I watched and read this series, I was on Team Miku. Respect though if you rooted for the other characters for your own preferences. Although in terms of the whole who is the future bride hook, at first I did not exactly see Miku as the best romantic interest for Futaro. Frankly, I didn't think any of the girls would be good partners. But as I watched and read this series, I began to regard Miku as my favorite character among the quintuplets because of her character arc of personal growth and how it is intertwined with the romantic narrative of the series. Basically, this video is just an analysis about the events of the series, both anime and manga, and about the character arc of Miku just because I want to. I will be spoiling a lot of things from both the anime and manga, so if you're still watching this video, then thanks and I hope you enjoy. Miku is introduced to the series as an introverted and reserved type girl with very little self-confidence and a negative outlook on herself. But as the story continues, her actions gradually depart from this initial characterization as she attempts to break out of her shell both to improve herself and to get Futaro to recognize her romantic feelings. Aside from Yotsuba, who is just supportive of all people in general, Miku was early in accepting Futaro as her tutor after he gained her trust in episode 2 of the anime and chapter 4 of the manga. From then on, she took her studies and her tutoring sessions seriously, supported Futaro as he tried to get everyone's grades up, and on multiple occasions even stood up to Nino, who is both the most resistant to Futaro teaching them and one of, if not the most outspoken of the family. Miku also has the recurring plotline of her, the worst cook among the sisters, learning how to bake as a way to impress Futaro. In chapter 93, she was confident enough to flirt with Futaro at the pool to match the energy of Nino, the proverbial runaway love train with no brakes. Her building up of character does not just limit to Futaro though, since in the later chapters of the manga, not only does she progress in her ability to bake to the point where she can impress her sisters for being able to replicate their mother's pancake recipe, she also gets to assert herself in conversations and resolve arguments among classmates. Furthermore, a point can be made that the confession she had made throughout the series outlines her changes in her confidence. Miku's first confession in chapter 38, which was not included in the anime, shows that she could muster the confidence to ask Futaro out, although this attempt was mistaken as roleplay by Futaro. Bruh. She later on makes a bolder confession in Kyoto, admitting fully that she likes him. And in her third and final confession, she ends up kissing Futaro in the school festival, no longer holding anything back. Simply put, in terms of character, Miku towards the end of the series is certainly a far cry from who she used to be at the beginning. It was this development in character that sort of resonated with me and had me rooting for Miku throughout my watch and read through of Quintessential Quintuplets. A part of that comes from how I related to this fictional anime character, as cheesy as that may sound. Now, I won't really say too much about this, but long story short, I was attracted to this one girl I was friends with for around 2 years. But instead of learning how to bake and study harder, I paid more attention to my personal fitness and socialized more to build up my confidence to hang out with her in person. I should make this very clear though that I did not become some kind of Giga Chad or anything like that, nor did I have perfect confidence in myself. But I felt that it was a drastic change from who I used to be. Frail, had close friends but not much else, and most importantly, very unconfident and afraid to go out of my comfort zone. It was seeing a lot of myself relating to Miku's story that I ended up feeling deeply invested into the character amidst the overall plot. I reacted strongly to not just the romantic progression between her and Futaro, but also towards her character arc. The feeling I got with this series is like how you'd support a friend in their personal endeavors because you've been there and done that before. And when you get to hear about their little successes in life, you just can't help but pop off and cheer for them a little. Seeing Miku's journey of growing to be a better person honestly made me wishfully think that she had a good chance of being the future bride because the evidence of her character growth is there. If this was like a classical hero's journey, then Miku overcame the obstacles in the path. All that is left is for her to be rewarded for her actions. Everything led up towards Futaro's confession since among the five, he romantically loved one and must enter through only one door signifying that love. My hopes were through the roof, hoping that the guy enters a room and sees Miku. And yet, it did not happen. I vividly remember this panel from chapter 113, where Miku became the bearer of bad news to Nino that Futaro was in love with Yotsuba. I don't completely know how other people felt reading this chapter, and some people may disagree with my interpretation of events, but for me personally, I could almost feel the heartbreak as she said only two words: "It's over." Imagine what it must feel like to put your heart and soul to a decision to love someone, but for any reason whatsoever, it just never bears fruit. Yeah, stings, doesn't it? But sometimes that just happens. This was not the first time that Miku would feel hurt after things didn't go the way she would have wanted. In the Kyoto trip arc that spans chapters 78 to 86 of the manga and episodes 23 and 24 of the season 2 anime, Miku reaches a critical low point after seeing Ichika disguised as herself in an attempt to have Futaro for herself, and decides to hide in her room and cry. We see a character flaw that had held her back ever since the beginning resurface just to haunt her, that being a lack of self-confidence, which stems from her feelings of inferiority when compared to her identical sisters who can do just as much, if not more than her. In Miku's head, this thought process made her blind to the positive qualities that she at present has, leading her to feel undeserving of any happiness. This was a sentiment that Nino, the sister that she butts heads with the most, tries to convince her out of. Given how Miku reacts to painful events in the past, a similar reaction could have happened in chapter 115 and 116, detailing the aftermath of Futaro's choice. Miku finds Yotsuba struggling to accept Futaro's feelings since she's filled with guilt thinking that she has taken away the happiness of her sisters, which is a topic that could make for an entirely separate video. Yotsuba was surprised to see Miku wearing a ribbon on her hair to look like her sister, joking that the latter can have Futaro for herself by using a disguise, which, out of irony, is what was done to her back in Kyoto. Metaphorically speaking, Miku's use of a disguise would be a manifestation of feelings proposing that Miku is not enough and instead needs to measure up to someone else, that her own self is undeserving of love and happiness. It was very much possible that she was still insecure of who she is. However, something else happens. Miku convinces Yotsuba to accept Futaro's confession and by extension, her own happiness. She does this while fully acknowledging that Futaro was in love with Yotsuba, and after a long night of karaoke, she ends up throwing the ribbon that she was wearing to the sea. Internally, she accepts how happy she was to have met Futaro, despite them never becoming an item. In recalling the entire journey that she went through, and everything she has become and everything that she can do thanks to him, she tells herself, "I wasn't able to become Yotsuba, but Yotsuba also isn't able to be me. I'm finally able to like myself to think that way." That girl I mentioned earlier also ended up rejecting me, and yeah, I did feel bad about it for a time. To be clear, I don't hold any hate against this girl. We're still friends to this day. But for those 2 years that honestly felt long ago, I was motivated to become the best person I could be. But with the goal in mind now gone, at the time I felt like I had nothing. Or rather, I was still worth nothing. I did move on from that pain though, which is why I can comfortably share this experience, and interestingly enough, the story of Miku made me vividly remember not the pain that I felt years ago, but instead how I moved on. By recognizing and accepting who I am in the present, being grateful for everything that happened along the way, and making peace with it to continue forward as I am. Granted, Quintessential Quintuplets is still a fictional rom-com series, and a harem one at that, so I don't take the whole of it completely seriously, and neither should you, but I think the series' writing of Miku depicts a valuable and natural narrative in love and romantic experiences, which I personally believe can sometimes go unnoticed, which is why I thought of making this video. Unlike an alternate ending where Futaro chooses one of the other girls or pulls off the namesake of the harem genre and lets everyone have their happily ever after, the canon ending shows that while personal growth is not exclusive to falling in love can motivate you to grow as a better person, and if that happens, then yeah, that's great, good for you. But love and all of the wonderful things that come out of it has the possibility of going unrequited, no matter how hard you try. It seems unfair, and yeah, it is. It's very much real and it sucks. Of course, not to blame the other person, also not to blame yourself, and really, to be honest, all of that is okay. Because whether or not the person you become is not loved back by that someone, you still come out of it all better than who you were before. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this first out of many future videos that I have lined up. The next ones are not gonna be as cheesy as this. I don't know. And yeah, so leave a like, subscribe, comments if you want to. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next video.